Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going live with you to talk about conversation skills. Conversation skills are a part of our lives. They have to be a part of our lives. Whatever we do, people we speak to, people we listen to are important. And I often say to my friends nowadays that conversations are extremely important, whatever we do in life. And in fact, a great conversation gives us that kind of high, that kind of feeling of being on top of the world when we come out of it. Because a conversation can actually change our perspective. It can change our level of inspiration. It can change whatever we do. So, talking to others and listening to others is what conversations are about. There are many nuances. This is not a technical session. I'm going to talk at a slightly higher level from my own experience, but I'm going to basically talk about the fact that conversations matter. If we are able to conduct good conversations, then we are mature, collected, cool, calm individuals. If we are not able to do that, then we are missing something in life. So, this is not a technical session, as I said, but from my own experience, I'd like to share a few qualities of a good conversation and some examples of good conversations that I have had or others have had. And now, what really makes for a good conversation? Let's talk about the beginning. You meet someone for the first time, you have a coffee meeting, let's say, somewhere, and it is a business meeting, but you also have to make good conversation. It's not only about numbers. It is a meeting that is held in a cafe, very typical nowadays of how the world functions when there is no lockdown, of course. And in that cafe, you meet this person for the first time. What do you say? What do you do? How do you conduct yourself? Do you smile? Do you smile later? Do you smile less? Do you smile more? So the first thing to tell you is that a smile is always in order. There is nothing wrong with smiling at a newcomer and shaking that person's hand firmly, sitting down with that person and starting the conversation. Smiles will not take away from your aura or your gravity or your being a very senior person. Smile a little more than you would otherwise. I think human beings don't smile enough. So we need to get into the conversation with a smile. And introducing ourselves is obviously dependent on how much we have already shared. If we've already shared that I'm this, I'm that, I do this, I do that, and I need to do this, I need to do that. So therefore, the person who has come is clued up, knows a lot about us. There is no point in repeating that, because what happens when we repeat something, it becomes even more, it becomes tedious and it's not required. And if someone has studied our LinkedIn profile or our LinkedIn profile and gone into the details, he or she already knows where we graduated from, what are our special skills, what is that video that we made last week. So you don't need to get into all that. So while introducing yourself, it's better to touch upon the macro picture rather, the higher level picture and not get into very many details. In 1999, I was there. In 2004, I started with this. In 2012, I was, innovating something. Don't get into all that. It's better to get to the point. After the point is over, the main purpose of the meeting is over, the main purpose of the conversation is over, then small talk can happen. And typically it does over a cup of coffee. But that initial thrust has to be based on your getting to the point. So that smile can be followed by a short introduction and then asking the other person about her or him. And being a good listener is the big takeaway from this session. Let me tell you that. You might come to many other nuances in this conversation that I'm having with you, but being a good listener is the biggest. Because a good listener actually provides succor in some way to humanity, because people don't have anyone to listen to them, and often they're so busy, everyone is so occupied, and having a good listener listen to somebody makes that somebody feel much better and calmer. So nodding where required, smiling where required, even saying wow when required is part of a good conversation. And looking that person in the eye across the table is also part of a good conversation. So the second part after being a good listener, and this is also part of being a good listener, is not to keep looking here and there, not to fidget too much, not to keep looking at your phone. Of course, it's a big crime to keep looking at your phone. It could be that you are looking at your phone 10 minutes into the conversation just to see if your boss has called you, or if your wife has called you, or if some friend has called you who was very important, but not frequently, right? So you can then say to that person that, excuse me, I just need to check my messages. And then look at your phone for a bit and then come back to the conversation. That is more polite than just picking up your phone and the person is talking to you and you are, okay, okay. So then you are totally engrossed in your phone to the detriment of the conversation. So get into your conversation and make sure that it matters to you what the other person is saying. So not only your listening, your eyes, your presence, your whole being has to be in that conversation. I mean, if you're worried about something at the back end, then obviously you're human. You are worried. Tomorrow I have an interview, or so and so said something to me in the morning which I didn't like. It's playing in the back of my mind. I'm not able to listen to this person because of that particular factor. Well, that's okay. You're human. But give that person due weightage, the person across the table. When you're in that moment, please be with that person. And until and unless that person proves to be very irritating or very difficult or very conceited and bad listener himself or herself, you must give the benefit of doubt to that person and go ahead and listen a little more. Very extremely important to give due attention to what the other person is saying. Extremely important. And sometimes it's also important to understand clearly by asking questions. So if somebody says that, I had a philosophy of making sales like this, and I was a super hit because I went into a meeting like this, and I did this and that. And he speaks a little quickly because he knows about his own life and his methods. You don't understand it very well. It's a good thing to pause that person and say, excuse me, I didn't understand that. Can you please repeat what you said? That shows that you're paying attention. That definitely shows. And if you can repeat what the other person said, that, oh, I see, so this was what you did to be so successful. So that shows the other person that you give weightage, you are interested in the other person's words. It may not even be a business meeting, actually. It may be only a meeting which is just two friends, but you're a new friend, and you need to give that friend that warmth. So listening is the most important habit, quality, decision to make, that I am going to listen to this person carefully. I may not have done it for the whole month. I didn't listen to anybody carefully because at home we are typically uh, we take people for granted. We don't listen much. We are like busy. We are in our phones. But now we met someone after the lockdown and having coffee, and we're still not listening. So we need to listen. Now, the other thing I'd like to say is when you build a conversation, you need to flow seamlessly. It cannot be that you are talking about organizations and careers and office, and you're talking about larger goals of the meeting of the business that you're doing, and suddenly you come to, okay, which is your favorite movie? It doesn't work like that. You cannot come from the Indian economy and the global pandemic to suddenly, oh, you know what? I saw MasterChef and the three new judges are just not a patch on the older judges, or they are absolutely amazing. And MasterChef is going to come in with a child edition where children are going to be cooking. You can't just go from the macro to the micro in the fraction of a second. The conversation has to be built up, it has to flow. So you can go from the economy to perhaps industry, perhaps employment, and from employment you can perhaps go to youth, and from youth you can perhaps go to sports, and from sports you can perhaps go to aspirations and ambitions, and you can go to things like trends, and the way people think, and then social media. That is a flow which is acceptable. But if I suddenly, after listening to someone speaking about the business environment and the economy and how he or she was successful in a particular way, I suddenly start talking about my passion for French toast or something, which I cooked very well or prepared so beautifully, and my pancakes are the best in the world. It doesn't work like that. We may do such things towards the end of the conversation when you're more friendly. After all, you met this person for the first time. Having said that, some conversations just flow. I mean, because there is a chord, there is a rapport which is struck. And often you meet someone on the train, and you're sitting with that person, and the flow starts with coffee, or these days these coffee sachets are difficult to open on the train, and you start talking about that with someone, and that person is quite receptive, and suddenly we start talking about coffee, and we start talking about the coffee industry, you start talking about beverages, you start talking about habits and mores and norms and ways of living. So things become seamless, and then it's not very difficult to build that conversation from coffee. It is anyway said that a lot can happen over coffee. So if we're talking about coffee, even then a lot can happen. Of course, the smell of coffee also does well for conversations. There is something about that smell of coffee which is not quite replicable in tea, in my view. But it's your view that matters. If you like tea, then go ahead with tea, and go ahead with banana shake if you like, if that's what you like. Another thing I'd like to add is that when you're having conversations online, online conversations are also important. Now, online conversations are the smell of coffee has to be your own. You've got your own coffee here, smelling good, and that makes you really feel good about the way you're speaking, the way you are. Though I've just got a glass of water here, by the way, at the moment. Still, I'm feeling as if I'm going to have a cup of coffee after this session. Coffee is making me good, feel good. It could be cricket. You're going back to the IPL after this conversation. You might be feeling good about that. You're going to the gym after the conversation, or you're going for a walk after the conversation, or you're going to the kitchen to prepare something, or you're going to read a book which you love. So, this conversation is to be followed by another activity which you're looking forward to. That doesn't mean that you cut short this conversation. Online or offline, you need to be in the conversation. So if I'm online and the person on the other end of the stream is a small blip, as the size of the book logo which you can see on my screen, supposing you can see that person only that much, well, the conversation is not going to be very interesting unless what they're saying is very interesting, right? So that person and you have to really make that conversation more effective. Of course, these platforms like Zoom or StreamYard or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or WebEx or whatever it is, they provide the latitude to the speaker to be spotlighted. And you can spotlight a speaker so that the conversation is more impactful. I mean, that speaker should not be one small dot on the screen. I don't know who's speaking, kaun bol raha hai ji, who is the person who's addressing us. It can't work like that. The person has to be really there, and very important to have a good view of that person. So since you can see me almost on the whole screen right now, if I'm able to hold your attention, it's because you can see me and listen to me. If I'm only a small dot, it's very difficult for me, even if I'm the best orator in the world, which I'm not. The other thing is that we listen to conversations in movies, and we understand a little bit about how to speak. These days, of course, like life outside movies, in movies also conversations are often so-so. But I remember a film, and I don't remember the name of the film, but Sushant Singh Rajput and Anushka Sharma, they met and they were cycling, and they met for the first time, and they were introducing each other in such an innovative way. I think they got to know about each other within 3 minutes, more than they would have in 3 months in that conversation. Their skill was, of course, based on the dialogue writer of the film, but how they were speaking and the whole impact was pretty good. So, how to get a conversation to reach a meaningful stage? is also something very important. We can't be talking about this and that, and we have a great rapport and we're laughing, but we actually wanted this conversation to reach someone. And it didn't really come to that point, and we just felt happy and we went home. Well, that's good, but it's not great because your objective was not achieved. And these days, to get to a cafe or wherever you're going, or even online, to take out an hour for a conversation, you need to take out time, and you're all busy people, and not me, but you're all busy people. So you need to take out that time. And to take out that time and effort and then not achieve what you wanted from the conversation is not good conversation. The other thing I'd like to add is that online people are suffering because they somehow are not able to be themselves. I've said this before in a video on how to speak well in webinars. Try to be yourself online. Somehow get used to the fact that this person in the screen of your laptop or your phone is a real live person. He can smell and see and touch and taste and hear as well as you can. He has all the senses. He's a human being, or she's a human being sitting there talking to you. Some people think that online conversations are about, you have the liberty to be distracted by this and that more than you are if that person is sitting across the table. It's not so. If the person is talking to you one to one, it is the same as talking across that coffee table. So you really have to be there in the conversation and not pretend that you are listening, but actually you're reading something or doing something else, which is not really perfect conversation skills. So when you're speaking, we're all there, right? You can't be speaking without thinking about what you're saying. But when somebody else is speaking, you have to be all there at the same time. And another conversation skill is to avoid distractions. And distractions can be felt if we are not into the conversation a little more. So you notice people on other tables. Of course, some people are easily noticeable, so you can't help it. Some people are not that noticeable, so don't notice them. I mean, just forget who's sitting over there. Carry on with your conversation. Talk to this person who's sitting with you. Listen to this person who's sitting with you. Extremely, extremely important. Be in the present moment, in a conversation, even more than you are in life. Being in the present moment anyway is very important, isn't it? Mindfulness. I often speak about this as a skill of life, that I am concentrating on this present moment, not thinking about where I'm going tomorrow, what happened yesterday, or where will I go once the lockdown allows me to go. Don't think about all that in a conversation, because the conversation matters to you. That's why you're there. Unless it's something that you're just doing to, while away your time and you're just half-hearted, which I don't advocate, but it's up to you. So the point is that distractions need to be minimized. It is okay to have something at the back of your mind while you're doing something, but if that thing keeps popping up to the front of your mind, then there's something missing in your life. So mindfulness will lead to great conversations and concentration, especially at home. When your spouse or your children are speaking to you, or your parents are speaking to you, listen carefully to what they say. We are often hoo-ha, and we do that. We're all human, and we do that, but we need to be in that moment. We need to listen to them. These are the ideas I had. Nothing very brilliant, but one last point I'll add before I take lots of questions are there. So I'm going to take those questions. One last point I have is that conversations can lead to career fillets, career boosts. And these career boosts and life boosts come because in that conversation you were impressive. In a meeting, in a dinner party, in some conversation, you spoke for that 30 seconds or 1.5 minutes. You said something which made sense, which made an impact, which was wow also at times. So in my career, I found a few conversations of mine that really changed the way I was perceived, the way I was received, the way people reacted and responded to me. I remember these conversations with big wigs or high and mighty types. I also remember personal conversations which changed the way people reacted to me, related to me, responded to me, were in front of me or in my presence. So great conversation skills will enable you to impress, to leave an indelible mark in people's minds, perhaps in people's hearts. And if you're youngsters out there trying to maybe get married one day soon or sooner than later, and you want to make a good conversation with your prospective spouse, it's good to be yourself. It's good to smile a lot. It's good to listen a lot. And it's good to be nice and kind to the waiters also if you meet at a cafe, and be a good human being there. A good human being and being a good conversationalist and being in the present moment and being cheerful and being calm and being balanced. Somehow all of these things go together. So I've got some lovely questions here, which I can see from the corner of my eye. And here we are. I'm going to take Indu Saxena Bedi's question first. She says, what does one do when out of two people, one person feels the other person is speaking so much that you inwardly feel you are not getting a single word in? Has to be a two-way street. So therefore, your conversation skills are very good, Indu, but the other persons are not that good. And there was a very high and mighty person in my career who used to be like that. He was a very senior boss, and he would not allow anyone to speak. And the joke here was that if you could get a word in edgeways into that conversation, then you were lucky. So if he spoke for about 1 hour, you could speak for about 1 minute. That was the conversation. In your case, I'm sure it's a better ratio. In my view, if you are a good listener and the other person is not a good listener, um, it is what you say and how impressive you are and how genuine you are that will make that person listen to you. So perhaps being patient is obviously the key. Once you get your chance, make your words count and make that person raise an eyebrow that, okay, this is what this lady or this person is about. Then perhaps he or she will listen a little more. I can't think of anything else, but you have to find a space in that person's mind at that time which matters to that person and that person wants to listen. There's no zabardasti, there's no coercion that will work. So it's very important to do that. Nachiket is saying, right, how to make a conversation two-way when you're out of facts and anecdotes. Well, Nachiket, just be yourself. Don't run out of facts and anecdotes. If you run out of facts and anecdotes, it's okay. So you can talk about how you feel. You can talk about the fact that you're worried about something. You can talk about something that makes you delightfully happy. You can talk about your creative ideas. You can talk about the U.S. elections if you like. I was listening to a great conversation by the vice presidents, the vice presidential candidates. Both of them were good. Mr. Pence and Ms. Harris were both good. They were listening to each other. I can't say the same about one of the presidential candidates. He was not listening to the other candidate. And therefore, that conversation was terrible. So maybe make notes about things and talk about them. You'll find things to talk about. Vikram Chaudhary is saying sometimes the other person doesn't open up. In such cases, can we try with something other than the real topic so as to open up the person sitting on the other side of the table? Yes, Vikram, I haven't touched upon that aspect here. If the other person is nervous, if the other person is not opening up, you have to find ways to be warmer, to be more interesting, to find topics of common interest for sure, and then you will be able to get across. Don't start with the most difficult things. Don't start with something that is going to annoy the person, and don't talk too much about yourself and be self-centered. And that's how you'll get across. So thank you for more questions are there. Anshuman is saying looking good. Thank you. Shivashi is saying proud. Okay, thank you. Mansi is saying hi. Mansi Kulkarni is saying, sir, do you know me? I'm Parth Kulkarni from STNX Innovation. Well, Mansi Kulkarni has become Parth Kulkarni. So, yes, Parth, I remember you from STNX. Thank you so much. I'm just joking. Mr. Rajbir Deswal, good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining. Shalendra is saying listening and assimilating the information is important. Absolutely. Aditya Rao is saying, oh my God, hi, sir. Oh my God, Aditya, hi. Rajat Rai says, did family stress hurdle in preparation of UPSC? Rajat Raj says, does family stress hurdle in preparation of UPSC? Okay, So quickly, Rajat, yes, it can be so. You have to keep your family with you, and you have to make sure that family listens to you and bucks you up, and you be with them, help them out, and be a good listener with them. They'll be good listeners with you. Aditya loves coffee. Team Jazbat, good evening. And then we have Indu Saxena is saying your answer is on point. Thank you very much, Indu. Nachiket is also saying my answer is on point. Vikram is saying, so we need to know the interests of the person first, plan for meeting in advance. Yes, Vikram, these days, how difficult is it to know the interest of a person? It's so easy, isn't it? Social media is our bête noire, if you can put it that way. It's something that bothers us, troubles us, but it's also very useful. And the last part I'll say to you all is conversations can also take place on social media chats. When you are chatting with someone on conversation, don't be abrupt, write good English or Hindi, write proper words, don't leave room for doubts, don't use too many emoticons, use a little bit of them, perhaps just a few of them, that's also okay. And try to be amiable, amicable, friendly. And if it's something professional that you're in a conversation about, then to be to the point, be correct. Don't write 1.3 million viewers on YouTube. If you have 3 million viewers, don't get the figures wrong. Don't get your facts wrong. In a written conversation, you cannot afford to be blabbing about too much unless it's your best friend on the other side. That's okay. Vishal Sharma is asking, while speaking to a few startups, I was told to work for free. Everybody offers, okay. Whereas I'm in need of money, I'm told I respect your goals, but right now my goal doesn't allow me to work for free. Vishal, I empathize with you, and the world is somehow very callous and very cold to people who are looking to make a career. I'm sure by working hard, by finding the right methods, by finding your goals, by taking one step at a time, you will reach a stage where people take you seriously and people will pay you for your skills, I'm sure. Ritu Nag is saying, which is the best conversation you've had or one of the best? I think with my teachers, I had great conversations, and with my coaches in cricket, I was a cricketer. I remember my coach, Mr. D.P. Azad, who was also Kapil Dev's coach, and he talked me out of studying too much. He said, cricket ko bhi time do. Cricket aapne chhod diya hai. For a few months, I didn't go to the stadium. So I think he was a great conversationalist. So thank you very much. Ramesh Roy is saying he learned a lot of things. Thank you, Indu, and thank you. I have also a few more comments. Dina Rastogi saying thank you. Ramesh is saying thank you. Well, this video is also going to be available on YouTube and LinkedIn for a long time to come, and you can watch it later, share it later. Other videos and other topics are also coming. LinkedIn Live is a rare kind of platform because not too many people are able to go live on LinkedIn. I'm very blessed that I'm able to do this. And it's very good to be in conversation with all of you. Although in this case, I'm afraid you had to do the listening and I had to do the talking. But thank you for asking me questions on the chat. And what I said in the beginning, I'll repeat: smile more than, please smile a little more than you normally do. And you look better, you'll make your presence felt. See you.